everyone.
Hey, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hello.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hi.
Hey, Andy.
Hello.
Dino's, the power list. What's up, man?
Oh, my Lord. Talk about anybody that has misgivings about anything, huh, Ben?
Congratulations.
Well, that's very kind.
Power
Thank
man.
you. Oh, Lord.
So Dino's was just elected. What was it, Dino's? The South Carolina business, something like that.
I think they obviously put the wrong person up there, but that was very kind of South Carolina Biz.
The power list.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Very kind, but thank you. It was a delightful surprise, and
Well deserved.
well, obviously there had to have been a lot of alcohol involved in the selection processes. So, but thank you, Ben.
Yep.
You guys ready for the holidays?
You mean having bought any presents yet? No, but
Not New Year's Eve yet.
Yeah.
ready for the holidays. Yeah,
Oh,
I guess.
Lord. I tell you, if you want to get ready for the holidays, ride out to Kiowa and see those magnificent decorations.
Oh, I'm sure.
Love what y'all did with the town hall too, Stephanie.
Oh, thanks. We were just talking about today. We're not really happy with the decorations, but thanks.
They look so festive and everything looks so nice.
We need to add more.
Yeah.
If you want to see decorations, go out to the, what is it, the James Island
Oh, yeah.
drive
County
through.
Park, yes.
Do you guys still have your?
Or something?
Don't you have your light, Dino's? Do you guys still do one of the?
You know, we do. We've been doing it now for, gosh, nearly 35 years.
That's what I thought. Yep.
Yeah, we started with a little star and it got one of, I don't even know, I can't remember what we have right now, but that is such an unbelievable story how they came about with all of that. Starting as such small little displays and has grown unbelievably into what they have now.
It's spectacular now, and you have to do it. Everybody
I mean,
has to go. It's a must do.
You got to go, and you got to be in a festive mood because if you're going to go early, you'll get in traffic.
Sit in line.
So yes, carry eggnog and whatever you like in the eggnog. So,
yep.
Ashley, you doing good?
Driving.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Hi,
everyone.
Hey,
Hey,
sorry about that.
Erica.
Hey, Ashley.
Was
I feel like we're in the Brady Bunch or something with all the tiles lined up.
Andy, you look up, and Ben, you look down. And you'll be looking at each other.
All right, we now know David's favorite show of the 70s.
Yeah. It's ingrained in my head. Jeremy, do you need anything else from me, or are we good to go for the live streaming? I think I saw the message pop up that we're live streaming.
It says in the upper left, live on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I can see that now. I'm also going to start the recording, and Erica, I think we could start at any time.
Okay. There we go. Well, good afternoon, evening. I never know what it is at this point in the day, but I guess it's technically afternoon. Welcome to the December 6th, 2021 meeting of the City of Charleston's Design Review Board. My name is Erica Chase, the board's chairperson. The members of the board with us tonight are Dinos Leolio, Aaron Stevens, Andy Smith, Stephanie Tillerson, Ashley Jackrell, and Ben Whitener. Members of city staff present are David Meeks, Allison Hilda Long, and Andrew DeRums. We do not have any board members recused from any agenda items, and we do not have any agenda items that were deferred. The order of the meeting will be as follows. David will give an introduction or project overview for any new projects. The applicant team will then have the project presentation. We do limit that to roughly 10 minutes. If the applicant thinks they need time well beyond 10 minutes, if you could please let me know at the start of your presentation. All presenters and any member of the team speaking should state their name clearly for the record. We will then have time for board questions and then public comments. The public comment period is also limited to 10 minutes. David, if I remember correctly, we do not have anyone registered to speak. Is that correct?
I'm correct.
Okay, and we just have the one email received. So I'll kind of skip over a lot of the public comments since we have no public comment this evening. After public comments, David will give city staff recommendations, and then the applicant team will have time to respond or clarify to the public comments or city staff comments with a 5-minute time limit. We will then open up the meeting for board discussion, motion, and a vote. During the board discussion time, the applicant may only clarify inaccurate information when recognized by myself or one of the board members, but otherwise may only speak if asked a question by the board. If everyone could please silence or turn off cell phones or any devices that may make noise during our meeting. And we'll move on to the virtual meeting protocol. David will be controlling the PowerPoint presentation, which includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline, in accordance with the submittal requirements. Applicants will need to ask David to advance to the next slide during your presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name whenever speaking. Video and microphone have been disabled for all attendees. Attendees will only be given the capabilities to speak when they are called on during the public comment period. Chat and Q&A functions have been disabled for everyone. Staff will issue meeting results, including staff comments and the board motion to the applicant following the meeting. The results will also be posted on the city's DRB website. And for additional information, there is a DRB email address and then also a website for additional information. And I do want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. So with that, we will get started with agenda item number 1.
Erica, I am not seeing the applicant for the first agenda item on the call. Her name is Pamela Arnold, and I'm not seeing her in the list or any phone numbers. So do we just...
If there's anyone on the call for agenda item number 1, could you please raise your hand in Zoom?
For 1757 Savannah Highway, the painting of the mural. The name I have as the applicant is Pamela Arnold. Okay. Yeah, all these other names I recognize, so.
Okay, should we defer it to another agenda item if they come on or still hear it?
Yes.
Been a while
yes,
since it's happened.
Right, let's move on to agenda item 2, and if they come up, then we can slip her in after the agenda item we're listening to.
Okay, so we will start then with agenda item number 2, 2310 Henry Tecklenburg, requesting preliminary approval for 2 new Dominion operations buildings.
Let's see, I'm not sure who's going first. Is this Keith Clark?
Yes, Keith Clark will speak first.
Okay. I don't have any context for this as we've seen it before, so you're free to get started.
Okay, thank you
Let
very
me know
much.
when to advance the slides.
Yes, sir, I will. You can stay right there for just a second, but in a minute, I'm trying to get to drawing AG 904A. But thank you very much for allowing us to visit with you again. In just a moment, I'm going to ask Jody Furman to speak to the 2 landscape comments that the board had from the conceptual study. But David, if you wouldn't mind going to AG 904A, which is a little bit deeper to address the comment that you had / staff had.
Sure, can we
Right there.
we go?
Yep, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, the pergola there on the end of the building, and this faces the Tecklenburg Road. The request was before the pergola engaged the precast panels without any columns or pilasters there to receive the structure. The structure was bolted directly to the precast wall. The request was to add columns and or study the pilaster addition, which we have added two. We studied it with adding 4, that is, since we had 4 closest to Tecklenburg, but it got pretty crowded right there around the entry door where you see that person going in. And so we've only shown 2. We thought it was the best design solution for that wall. So hopefully that will be acceptable. Going on, David, the only other staff comment was that we provide a bollard detail. I don't know if you want to review that now, but it is submitted as drawing A505A.
Yeah, that's okay. I saw it in the set.
Okay. The plan is to go over new information. If you wouldn't mind going to drawing AG906A. What I wanted to point out here is that we, on the left-hand side of the building there, you will see a screen wall. That screen wall, interior to the screen wall, houses the mechanical equipment. It's all VRF equipment. The screen wall is 7 feet high. It is dimensioned to have the required airflow around those equipment, around the equipment yard. So what you see there is as big as it needs to be, both horizontal and vertically. On the right-hand side there in the image, you can see another equipment screen that is around the transformer, the ATS switch, and the generator, as well as a CT cabinet for the solar connection to the system. In plan view, this image got cut off a little bit, but in plan view, everything is dimensionally correct. And again, this one is also 7 feet high. So that is the new information. David, if you wouldn't mind going to drawing A301, which is a little bit past this. Okay, right there, perfect. Drawings A301A and through A305A show the building sections cut through the varying heights of the building, as well as the details and the overhang extension details, just to give you a feel for how we're planning on constructing those per the request. If you will go to drawing A701A, and I'm trying to hurry to be within my 7-minute time limit. This is the mock-up panel that we plan on building at the site for the board's approval per your requirements. All the material selections are listed there in the upper right-hand corner. And this will be a full-scale mock-up, as I just said, that we plan on putting at the site. I didn't read through the mock-up approval process, but I think that is a separate submission that we have to do later. Isn't that correct, David?
Correct. Yes, and I was going to mention that in my staff comments.
Okay.
That would be a separate application. It's a staff review only.
Correct. Then following this, we have the Dominion Monument sign details that we plan on. If you go a couple more, that's some of the material selections there, right there. This is the monument sign that we plan to put out on the Tecklenburg roadside. And it would be a ground lit. It is not internally lit. And some of that lighting detail follows. And then we have one more directional sign that's several pages deeper, that one more right there. We have a directional sign. This may or may not be required at the end, depending upon Dominion's final comments, but in case it's required, we wanted to go ahead and submit it to where we can get feedback to its appropriateness from the DRB. Other than that, that's the new information, other than some of the other requested drawings of photometrics from the lighting, site lighting, that's in here. But I do want to turn it over to Jody Furman to address the 2 board landscaping comments.
Good afternoon. This is Trey Linton with Forsberg Engineering. Jody has a personal conflict, so I was going to go over the 2 landscape comments for him. David, if you can go to L001, please. So one of the comments was to add verticality to the planting in the right-of-way. If you can zoom in to the right-of-way.
Mhm.
So previously in the right-of-way, it was all essentially sweet grasses and some wildflower mix. As you can see now in the right-of-way, we've added wax myrtles, yapon hollies, and dwarf palmettos to add verticality in that right-of-way. We also were asked to detail the wildflower mix. And if you go to the next sheet, L002, in the plant schedule, previously we just called out wildflower mix, but now we specify that it needs to be native wildflower mixture, deer resistant wildflower mixture by Eden Brothers. So we do provide that detail now as well. Just keep in mind, there's a lot less wildflower mixture in that right of way now that we've added much more landscaping than the previous submittal had shown.
So David, that addresses the 2 board comments from a landscaping side. So now, unless there are questions, we'll turn it back to you and the board.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I had one question. The fences that you showed around the mechanical equipment and some other equipment, was the 7 feet high. That's how high you have to go to be above the equipment, so you're not seeing anything from the street from Tecklenburg, I presume.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? With none and no public comment, David, staff recommendations, please.
Thank you, Erica. The staff and board comments have been addressed since the last review. The board is free to comment on the included signage and the mock-up panel that's in the package, but for these proposals, they both need to be a separate staff review with a separate application. The applicants are showing lighting that appears to be for uplighting of the buildings. DRB has a policy of no uplighting. If the applicant could clarify that.
No, sir, there's lighting, the lighting cut sheets are shown back in the back of the drawing set, but they are wall sconces that only shine down.
Okay,
And
good.
then the site lighting also is a cutoff fixture and it only shines down.
Perfect, thank you. Staff does recommend preliminary approval.
Thanks, David. I assume since that was clarified during David's comments that Trey or Keith, you do not have anything else to clarify or respond to?
Not at this time.
Okay, thanks. We are now in board discussion and a motion.
I can make a motion to approve the preliminary approval as presented with, looks like no comments, because the only one that the staff has relates to the signage and mock-up panel, but that, of course, we know will not be addressed until they resubmit. So I recommend approval as presented.
Thanks, Stephanie. We have a motion for preliminary approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ben. Is there any further discussion? With none, I will now call roll. Dinos?
Dino votes yay.
Aaron?
Yes, in favor.
Andy,
Yes, in favor.
Ashley,
Yes.
and I am also yes in favor. So with that, David, I still do not see Pamela Arnold on as an attendee. So I guess we'll move on to item number 3.
Yes.
Okay. So we are moving on to agenda item number 3, which is 1521 Savannah Highway, requesting conceptual approval for a new car dealership building.
Okay, I didn't have any context for this. Billy, if you'd like to jump right in.
Hi, this is Tommy Baker. They tell me I'm the owner of this place out here, but first off, I just want to thank you guys for what you do. And I know it's a selfless thing and it's a community thing. And being a part of this community, I just want to thank you folks for what you do. And along with me today, I have Billy Bishop. Of course, you know Billy. Sean Mellon, who I think is Billy's boss, if Billy has a boss. And they're both with Glickbaum, they're partners. Okay, forgive me if you will. But also Eric Ladson from EarthSource. And first off, I'd like to say that I was in the meeting last time, did not speak, but I wanted to say I think you had some great comments. Don't agree with everything, but I think the first one was the location of the building. And when I saw it, and I think I might have surprised Billy and Sean, because I said, you know, I agree, it should be congruent with everything we have, and you should be able to drive down to every one of our locations by car within off of Savannah Highway. And also having cars displayed on the side, which is Markville Road. And so I think that was a great logistic call for us, for me, and I absolutely agree with that. And so I would like to go over each point, if I may, and this was your observation. And first off, from my point, you know, so I build, you know, a few car dealerships, and I love doing this, but this one really caught my eye as far as the structure, and I just think it's unique. And I think it complements the brands that we have there. And I think it will be something that will look good 20 years from now, 30 years from now, with the glass structure and the type materials we're using. And having a double decker there with an elevator, which I think will just be a great showplace, which is my opinion. And I'm just an old car guy that loves buildings and cars and that kind of stuff. So, but I appreciate what you folks had to say about that. And so the setback really works, okay? But as far as the building and the craftsmanship of the building, I personally, I just think that the materials and the texture and the quality will just blend in with the whole complex, if I may. And the craftsmanship is as good as anything I've seen, and I go all over the country looking at different dealerships. The glazing and the use of the curtain walls and the frameless glass, I just think that it just sets it above most everything that I've seen. And to have it right there on the corner next to a stoplight, right in the middle of Auto Row, I think is, for me, I really like it. We just studied these degrees in an umpteenth way, and I think that hopefully we've given you what the city sees. The idea of adding a parapet to the rear of the building to block visibility to the roofing, I agree with that. I think that's good because we want to look good from Markville, but also the rear. And if you look at most of my dealerships and all my dealerships, we try to look good in the back of the stores as well as the front. It's very important for me. And as far as plants and decoration on the exterior of buildings, I just love planting stuff, and I love buildings that are complemented with beautiful plants and well-planned architecture with the environment. So hopefully we've done that, and we're anxious to hear what your opinions are. And again, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Is there anything else from your team?
Yeah, I was just gonna go over one thing real quick. If you could go to A201 real fast, David. Yeah, right here. Yeah, so I just wanted to start off with the current design, and really I wanted to get into more of the detailing of what the concept brought from the previous design, which is very similar, but I wanted to kind of go over the concept in more in detail. These luxury brands have very iconic forms, their symbols, their expressions from their front grills, integrated lights, their gentle curves kind of define the body styles of each of these. And we're looking to also capture that within this project. Go to the next slide, please. So we are looking forward to capturing this elegance and sleekness and purposefulness within this design, from the curved radiuses of the corners to the integrations of the lighting and the openness of the structure with the frameless glazing. We're trying to keep everything as simplified yet purposeful, allowing these brands to really be the center stage within this building. We've restudied this. We feel that the exterior cladding of a silver metal panel is appropriate for this. Really the definition of sleekness is a high polished and refined material. So we felt that kind of complements these brands and these designs within this building. We met with our structural engineer. We've gotten input from them as far as the structural gridding and how this building would actually be expressed within the structure, since you have all of this glazing here. We appreciated the input on going to a frameless glazing, which will also give us more of that openness that we would like to have, as well as to be able to showcase these vehicles inside. If you can go to the next slide. So this is the view from Savannah Highway. And what we've done is we've actually mirrored the building on the site. We've set it back off the road. And this allowed us to orient our entry towards Markfield, which we feel will be the main entrance into the complex. And then this also anchored the corner, which is our what we're proposing would be our main signage to the building. So that is more precedence and highlights the corner, we think, better. If you can go to the next slide. So here's the view from Markfield. You can see that pillar on the corner. You can see how the entrance is actually recessed from the building to give kind of a covered entry. Again, everything is trying to be very simplified, very clean connections. You can go to the next slide, please. So you can see here, there's just a closer of how these lighting might get integrated into it to both highlight the building as well as create lighting on the entrance that is, again, we're not just putting a wall pack on the building. We want everything to be integrated just as cars do. Everything is purposeful. Everything is detailed in a way that it has meaning to it. Go to the next slide, please. And so you can see here that we actually have that curtain wall is pulled back from the structure. So you can see the structure of the second floor piercing through and connecting to this column. So again, trying to give some play to the and some movement to the structure and to the form of the building. And with that, we'll allow any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? With none and no public comments, David, if you could go through your staff comments, please.
Sure. Thank you, Erica. Staff observations: the building location has been moved back from the site to be more in line with the existing car dealerships that are set back from the street. Staff finds this building design to be sharp and supports this concept. Staff suggests moving the sidewalk that connects Savannah Highway to the building to the center of the front facade. So right now it's lined up with the side of the building. I was just suggesting moving it to the center of the building. And then also removing 2 car spaces and landscape both sides of the walk so that it's flanked on either side, framing the front facade. Staff comment number 2, staff would like to see more low wall sections along the street, or actually elongating what they have. They pointed out that they were matching what the Porsche dealership did next door, but in my opinion, the Porsche dealership didn't do enough of the low walls. There's only a couple very short, small sections, and you can see a lot of asphalt. So here they just have one small section. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. So there's a short wall section here, here. So pretty much just the 4 short sections. And over on this side, there's only the one short section right here. I was also pointing out that the location of this one on Markfield is awfully close to the parking place. Just make sure that it's set back enough that a car parking in this spot won't hit the wall. But we do recommend conceptual approval with the conditions noted.
Thank you, David. Does the applicant team have anything they'd like to clarify or respond to in staff comments?
No, we appreciate those comments, and we will definitely study those.
Okay, thanks. We are now in board discussion and a motion.
Erica, this is Dinos. And first of all, it's very kind of Mr. Baker to be engaged and involved in this. And he has created a nice language, both landscape horizontally and vertically along Savannah Highway. And thank you.
Thank you,
Those
sir.
kind comments as well. May I ask, David, where is the main entry to the building?
It's on the Markfield side now, since they've
It's
moved
on the
building
Markfield
back.
side. Yeah.
But
So
also telling the portion.
That might be good. I
That's-
don't know if you were going to suggest
that's what I was going to
moving
suggest.
the walk over to that side.
Just to align it with the entry would be what I would suggest, and just basically in lieu of getting rid of any of the parking, that you just move the entry to align it with the entry to the dealership.
Yeah, I would be fine with that.
You know, the one thing that I do recall discussing too, when we were talking about the Porsche dealership, was that the automobiles truly are delightful work of art that you see as you go down Savannah Highway. And I know every one of us guys dream about the aspect of that red 911 jumping into one day. The same thing is true about these Maseratis and everything else. And I'm back to the same argument that we used on the Porsche dealership. The break in the wall to see the cars is really kind of a nice treatment. And it does begin also to create a little bit of gradation on the solid walls as you get toward Markfield. And that's personal now. It's just very subjective, but I really don't have an issue. I would like to see, like you were suggesting, a little bit more of the solid walls down Markfield, but I don't know if it necessarily needs to be filled in. Would love to hear the reaction and response from the other members. And then finally, I know one of the comments that we had last time was that, as the applicant has shared, the degree of the detailing and the wonderful conciseness of that detailing in terms of the automobiles that are going to be placed here is reflected within the context of the building. And I just wanted to thank the applicant for going further as far as the discussion and dialogue with the structural. I think one of the problems we had previously was, does the building truly reflect the structural aspects of what we're going to have? And I can see that there have been a great deal of effort to make additional suggestions within that regard. So I'm really anxious to see how this detailing continues to go forward. So that's basically my comments.
I have a couple of comments, Madam Chair, if you don't mind. I actually don't mind the openness on Markfield. I mean, our office is right down Markfield. You can probably see that it's one of the brick buildings right down the road. I appreciate the setting back from Savannah Highway and Markfield. I think that's very successful. I also appreciate taking some consideration to the rear facade. Although definitely needs a little study. Looking at the roof plan, it looks like there's going to be some scuppers and downspouts. So you definitely work out where that's going to happen on the, I guess it's the west elevation or south elevation. The only thing that really bothers me, on the south elevation and A2.
I was looking for a rendering, but
they have an elevation, a CAD drawing that shows it right there in the bottom left. So it looks like they're showing 3 downspouts and scuppers on the back. So I would, you've treated the building with these nice refined horizontal panels. I mean, you're going to have these vertical pieces coming down. So they're going to need treatment as well. And I would suggest too, when looking at, if you're having any lighting or any other appendages, that think carefully. I mean, because when you have a sleek building like this, any appendage makes it stand out like a sore thumb. I had a question, I don't know, Madam Chair, about signage. I was just wondering, it just feels like there's a lot of signage, and I understand that you have to have signage, but I feel like if you look at the renderings, there's signage from the corner, there's signage all over. And I get it from a marketing standpoint, but I feel, could we cut something, some of the symbols maybe, and you keep the names and cut the symbols on the side, or especially from this other corner. If you look at the corner looking, I guess, south, where they're basically right next to each other.
Eva, could you comment on that? Because I believe it's only allowed on the one facade, not both. Is that?
Facade signs are allowed on the sides facing a main street and the sides that have an entry. So they really have that for all 3 sides. Now, there could be excess as far as, we're only really allowed to have the name of the business. We usually don't allow extra information like services or phone numbers or anything like that. So really the car symbols or icons, I would call them, I'm not sure if they'd even be allowed, and that was going to be more of a subjective allowance for this case, because I think they do look nice. I think we would allow certainly some of those. But what they're showing right now is, I agree with them, it's a little excessive.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Ben.
Oh, no, that was it. I just felt like there was a lot of signage going on, and especially with this nice refined metal panel, it just seems like it's getting a little busy. But the treatment of the glass, that's beautiful. I mean, it's sleek, it's elegant, and the structure exposed behind, I appreciate that. And it's clear, the regulating lines aligning, and I like the modifications that have been made.
Ben, are you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is Erin. I just didn't want to interrupt you if you were.
No, you're good.
I just wanted to talk for a minute more about the landscape walls, because I'm assuming I didn't see a detail or anything in there. It just says they're going to match the Porsche, the ones at Porsche. And so I pulled that up. I'm looking at it on my screen over here in Google Earth. And And they look like they're just stuccoed block walls, I'm guessing. So it would be the same detail over here, I assume, or do we have any additional information?
That's correct. That, yeah, we would be matching what's on at the Porsche site, which is stucco covered block.
Okay.
That way we keep the continuity between the sites.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't disagree with David's comment that it might need a little more substance along the front. I don't necessarily think it needs to be solid the whole way, but it does feel a little bit proportionally small for that full length of frontage with all the parking facing the road. So I think, either the individual segments could be made longer or additional segments could be added. I would encourage, and it looks like here, we're showing that there are plantings on both sides of the walls because they help soften the walls. While the walls are providing good screening, it's a lot more attractive if you have plants, on both sides of the walls. So I appreciate that, because in some of the porch walls, it looks like there's not much planted in front of them. So, I think that we're on the right track here, but I would definitely suggest looking into beefing those up a little bit, especially along Savannah Highway.
Can I just piggyback on that? One thought I had to relay to the owners is that the goal is to screen some of the asphalt. And these walls are so low that I really don't think it screens the cars. I think you can still see the cars really well over these walls. So it's more of a exercise to screen the asphalt than to, I know they don't want to screen the car.
Aaron, I'll chime in on that.
Go ahead.
I was going to chime in on Aaron's comment because Dinos had kind of mentioned that same concept. And, if we're from a design standpoint looking at mirroring what's already next door at the Porsche dealership, I don't know that that's really going to bring much design to the site. If it's just going to be a low stucco wall, I think the landscaping probably has far more opportunity to bring something positive from a design perspective in that regard. So I think I'm leaning more towards Dinos and not necessarily needing more walls, but just because I don't think that they necessarily add a positive, they themselves, but the landscaping might be something to lean on in that regard.
Good.
The only thing I think Ms. Sandy say to that is landscaping can be ephemeral and can change out, and whereas I think that this is more of a system that works together is a good established wall that backs up and complements the landscaping. And I think that they just need to work out a rhythm and a height that screens the asphalt like we're asking for, but provides them.
I think, I'm getting into more philosophical maybe, but the wall is a component of the landscape. It's not just the plantings are. And so I think that a more design attention could be given to a planting plan and a wall design that would work together to achieve the goal, which is why I mentioned, having plantings on both sides of it to soften it. But as Andy mentioned, the plantings aren't consistent all year. And so it would, just explore ways that they could work together to achieve the goal.
I have a quick question, David. You said the wall is intended to block the asphalt of the parking. So I'm just curious, so if they didn't have asphalt, if they did something else, the board's position would be, we wouldn't mind not having the walls?
I think when I said asphalt, I mean paving in general.
Paving in general, okay.
Yeah. And a lot could probably, I think the applicant will probably restudy how those walls, and I think Aaron had a really interesting point too about the rhythm. If the entryway, I'm pointing to my screen now, as if y'all can see me, if the entryway moves to the further down south on Savannah Highway to align with the entry to the building, and some type of change in material crosses the asphalt as well, it may begin to even further inform how, and I love that comment, Aaron, the rhythm of that wall begins to present itself. And you know, we made this comment at the last meeting, the way that Baker Motors maintains this verge along Savannah Highway. I wish I could keep my house this magnificent. So I feel certain that in the end, with a little bit of restudy and the relocation of that main entryway, we can probably see it further as preliminaries develop. I'm just curious from you guys, from Aaron and Andy's standpoint particularly, how do you feel about the change of material on this entry sidewalk from Savannah Highway across to the building? Is that something that's kind of hokey, or you think there's merit in that thought?
I think that there's some merit. I mean, it definitely kind of presents that space as the pedestrian space rather than a vehicular space. You know, if you were to bring that across the asphalt, you know, it kind of presents, as I said, it presents it as, you know, this is a pedestrian space, or should. You know, it maybe even, you know, bring that crosswalk up a little bit rather than just being level with the paving. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, get it elevated slightly.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to, you know, doesn't have to be severe. It can,
Yeah,
you know, be just very slight, and, you know, just kind of gets that space up and kind of makes it prominent.
Yep. Well, I'm, unless Stephanie or anybody else, Ashley has any other comments, I'm willing to take a shot at a motion.
I would like to just make one more general comment about the landscaping and the landscape palette.
Yes.
As always, I'm going to, I guess, challenge the designers to really study this list and use as many natives as you can. There's definitely some things in here. I'm not going to nitpick at Conceptual, but specifically the things like the miscanthus need to be substituted. There are others on the list, but I'm going to leave that to their design development to kind of massage this list into preliminary.
Madam Chair, I just have one question. And this has to do with, just curious from David, on the east side of the building here in the upper right side, there's that thick black line. I'm guessing that maybe it's a wall. At first I thought it was a proposed sign, monument sign where it's going, but I guess that's part of the low wall. So the two parking spaces that's outside, one is outside the property line. Is that needed, or can they expand their landscape area and remove those two parking? Was it required from a planning zoning standpoint to meet the parking requirement? Because it looks like one is outside, one is completely outside the property. I know it'll be shared parking, but then the other looks like it's right down the lot line.
Can you see where I'm pointing? Are you
Yes,
talking about
sir.
these?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I know that zoning requires a certain number of parking spots.
I wasn't sure from our standpoint if we needed that, if we wanted to be able to expand that buffer area to be able to remove, because it seems like an awkward area to be able to park anyways.
Billy, can you answer to that? If this was required parking or why it's outside the property line?
So this is, this is Eric Latson with Earth Source Engineering. I was going to take that question. When we were making the connection to Porsche, that two-way connection, we actually took out 5 of the existing Porsche spaces. And per the zoning comments, we're to replace those spaces. So hence the 5 closest to Porsche to serve as the replacement, and would have a shared access and shared parking agreement for between them.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Dinos.
I'd be delighted to, you guys help me out here now, to make a motion for conceptual approval with the following comments, board comments. Number 1, restudy the relocation of the sidewalk leading from Savannah Highway to the building to align with the main entry to the building. And consider a differential elevation between the sidewalk and the surrounding pavement. Basically elevate slightly the sidewalk.
This is still all number 1, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, and consider
A slight elevation change, bringing the sidewalk slightly above the surrounding. And provide a change in material as it crosses the asphalt pavement. Number 2 is to, regarding landscape, restudy landscape to use native planting materials. Number 3 would be restudy rhythm of landscape wall. Number 4 is to restudy signage. I'm going to say to stay in compliance with zoning. But, and I don't know how the board's going, how you feel about this, but possibly consider, well, restudy signage as in compliance with zoning. And then 5 is to restudy the rear south elevation as it relates to downspouts and other applied elements. Ben, did I say that right?
Yeah, I was just saying that needs to be the case around the whole building. What the appendages that are applied to the building need to be thoughtful.
Why don't we say the entire, instead of just on the south elevation, that any appendages applied to the building need to be thoughtfully
Considered, whatever.
considered. I think that with board comments, we've probably addressed staff comments 1 and 2. David, would you agree with that?
Let's see. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion on the table for conceptual approval with board comments. Number one, restudy the relocation of the sidewalk from Savannah Highway to the building so that it aligns with the main entry of the building, and consider a slight elevation change to bring the sidewalk up slightly higher. Provide a change in material as it crosses the asphalt drive. 2, restudy landscape to use more native plant materials. 3, restudy the rhythm of the landscape wall. 4, restudy signage to stay in compliance with zoning. 5, any appendages to the building, such as downspouts, need to be carefully considered. Is there a second?
I'll second this, Andy.
Oh, go ahead, Andy.
Okay, Andy has the second. Any additional or further discussion? With none, I will call roll. Erin?
Yes, in favor.
Stephanie?
Yes, in favor.
Ashley?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes, in favor.
I am also yes in favor. Thank you very much. David, have we seen item number 1? Anyone jump on the call yet?
Let's see. Afraid not.
Okay. So we will move on to agenda item number 4, 3486 to 3492 Maybank Highway, requesting conceptual approval for a new multifamily development.
So just a little bit of context to show everybody where this is. You can see the red back 3486 Maybank. There's a closer view. It's kind of an odd shaped site. On the west property line, there's power lines that run along here, which you can see right here. So on the left side of this power line would be the western property line. And then just another view into the site off of Maybank. The buffer will be maintained, existing buffer. But with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant. I'm not sure who's going first. That would either be Laura or
David. I can actually jump in. It's
Steve.
Laura's on. Yeah, yes, sir. Laura's on the call, as well as a couple other design consultants and another member of Middleburg, Eric Brown, who'll jump in a little bit. But first off, I'd just like to say thanks, everybody, for the time this evening. I know we're past COB, and it's definitely something going above and beyond to provide this service to echo the previous applicant statement or sentiment. So I just want to dive right into this. David, if you wanted to flip to sheet C300. So this is the Hamlet, and my name is Steve.
This is a little slow.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. But my name is Steve Farmartino. I'm the development manager of Middleburg Communities, and we're bringing before the Hamlet at Maybank, which is a for-rent cottage style and townhome community comprised of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. We have a mix of 1, 2, and 3-story units, and we can get into those a little bit more telling when we look at elevations later. But as you can see, it's 211 units spread over approximately 36 upland acres. So under the DR6, this was rezoned. It's just under the density limit. And we've gone through quite a bit to work with staff to get to this point. And David,
sorry, can you remind me of the sheet?
Yeah, it's C300. It's the overall.
Oh.
Yeah, it should be a couple before this.
Yeah, it doesn't like that sheet. Just give it a second here. There you go.
There we go. So this site, it's an assemblage of 3 parcels, and we've taken it successfully through the rezoning process and also through a variance process up to this point. And you can see with this site, there's a couple things to point out that are kind of obvious and jump out of the screen. One, we have our standard Hamlet design guidelines, where it's a traditional neighborhood district of these many, what we like to call pocket neighborhoods, which are defined as pods on the site plan, that are interconnected, very walkable, just creating a very unique walkable community. And when you got to this site, there's obviously a fair amount of challenges to solve. So you really had to establish those and then design around them. So I think from the first standpoint, we went out and had the tree survey done. And you can see there are a number of grand trees and also protected trees, which are also included in this submittal as an actual survey. But you can see we've had to navigate those throughout the site, along with a large corridor of wetlands centrally located. And the access you see right there is actually, it's an existing trail road that we plan to improve and then also widen slightly for emergency service access to the back piece. The thought process behind only providing the one access is to minimize our impacts to the wetlands to the greatest extent possible and really preserve what I think is going to be a very cool kind of scenic view as you drive to the northern portion of the site. Along with that, we were in a special protection area in terms of flood management. So we have a rather large percentage of our developable acreage taken up with BMPs scattered and strategic low points around the site adjacent to the existing wetlands. So you can see if we want to go to kind of flip through some of the zoomed in, if you want to go to C301. Yeah, so you can see off of Maybank Highway, there's a pretty significant buffer there. I believe it's 75 feet, which encompasses a number of grand trees where I think it's going to look really, really cool. We have a streetscape and a couple slides, but just the fact that once this is out there, constructed and built, we're going to have all this very old, rich, existing vegetation that's going to be, I think is going to be a nice complement. You can see our clubhouse is located off to the right along the entry boulevard right there. We do have a pool that's going to house the fitness area, the leasing office. And then in the rear, we have a small walking path that's intertwining through the existing trees where we'll have an outdoor grilling station. We have some cabanas adjacent to the pool area. And then the mail kiosk is detached, located just to the south of the clubhouse. Outside of the cottages, we do have an amenity space towards the northern section. Dave, if you want to flip a few slides. Right here is perfect. If you look at the top left-hand corner, kind of separated between the existing power line where we have some units right up against it on the eastern border, but on the western border, we have our maintenance shed and also dog park as kind of, again, complementing the existing vegetation with some walking trails. And you may ask a question, I'm going to flip to the other side real quick. You may ask a question of what is the structure to the east? If you go back one slide real quick, David. So as you're coming north through the existing wetlands, off to the right, you'll see that gravel drive and structure. That is a private lift station off to the right. Due to just some of the topography, it's relatively flat out there. And just with some of the constraints and existing features of the site to navigate, we will have to do a private forest system. So that's what that structure is, just to answer any questions there. If you want to flip to LP 1.00, that is the start of our supplemental landscaping plan. Should be, I think, 4. This is the required. So,
sorry.
There you go. So that's the start of it. And rather, this is more of any one of these lines can kind of indicate what the feeling is we're trying to go with highlighting really the cottage and townhome elements with the existing vegetation on the site. And really one of the main points of the hamlet concept is to provide a unique frontage for every unit. So either they'll be facing an activated streetscapes with street trees, on-street parking, or they will be fronting on an open space. Which you can see, we labeled those as pods. I think some of these are faded back a little, hard to see, but and then if you would like to flip to L 6.04. Should be the next slide.
Is it L 6.04?
There it is. So this is the streetscape along Maybank to give you an idea of what this is going to look like from the public right away. You can see the existing vegetation within the 75-foot buffer. We have plenty of plantings to complement those right off the bat. It provides really a nice screening element from the units that are going to be directly adjacent. And even those are set back significantly past the buffer just due to the protection zone of some of the grand trees out there. And then the next handful of slides are more the technical floor plans and elevations. I'd like to turn it over to Eric Brown to go over the colored renderings to the rear of the slideshow.
Hi, everyone. This is Eric Brown, also from Middleburg Communities. I'm the Director of Design. Wanted to turn it, if we can go right to, I think it's the fifth from the last. It's the beginning of the colored renderings. We can just start there. And I'll get into some of the building design. We can start here. There we go. So as part of this, the traditional neighborhood design that we were kind of getting at, and Steve did a good job of describing how we worked with that as far as site planning. We wanted that to roll over into the architecture as well. And starting here with just the clubhouse, taking the idea of our cottages as we're calling them, and bringing that language to the clubhouse. And if you go forward, I think it's 3 more slides, we can get into some of the units. One more. All right, here we go. And in our units, we have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units that are anywhere from 1 level to 3 levels tall, just depending. We took some of those same traditional neighborhood design elements and instituted those within each unit. So each unit will have a front porch for the most part that fronts on either one of the main streets or one of the pocket parks, the pods that we're creating. Again, it creates a really nice neighborhood atmosphere. Nice to drive through, nice for walking as you're walking along the walking trail, but it also creates a nice environment in which, as we're going down each road, we're not seeing the same house next to each other. We're not seeing the same house colors next to each other. It really creates a lot of variation throughout the neighborhood, regardless of which end of the development we're on. In looking at colors, we wanted to create colors that were kind of pleasing to the eye, but they weren't too jarring. But that had a lot of kind of Charleston feel. So we wanted to get in some of the blues, the greens, and some of the pinks that we see kind of throughout the area, and bring that to our neighborhood to make sure that it kind of fit within its location. And as we get into some of the townhouses, thanks for flipping to these. We want to take that same idea of not putting the same unit next to each other, and take that idea and add it onto our townhouses as well. So as you can see, we used different materials and application of color on those materials to make sure that the units aren't looking the same as they're next to each other within a building. And speaking of materials, we really stuck to really just 2 or 3 in terms of the siding of each unit. So we're using kind of lap siding, we're using a board and batten, and then fascia boards, which allow us to separate those out and apply colors differently to them kind of throughout the development. And I will say that these are just kind of examples of how we can do this on all of the unit types. All of these colors will be.
Sorry to interrupt. We're at about 10 minutes right now.
Okay.
Do y'all need time beyond that, you think, like, or substantial more time?
Nope, about to finish up actually.
Okay.
Just to kind of finish up with materials, as I said, mostly fiber cement siding, either lap or board and batten. And then we're going to have asphalt shingle roofs, vinyl windows, and metal front doors and garage doors as we go through. The same fiber cement trim is also being used kind of throughout to differentiate materials. It's also what we're using on our porches to help differentiate those. And with that, if anybody has any questions about our site planning, the buildings themselves, please let us know.
Thank you. We are now in board questions. I had a few questions. Are you removing any grand trees? And if so, have you gotten the BZA site approvals for those?
Yes, John, you want to take this one?
Yes, we went through the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we had to get both special exceptions and variances, and we do have those in hand.
Okay, thanks. The one access point for the site, David, you could go to the site plan. Has that made its way through TRC?
We have been to TRC. They've reviewed it. We're coming for first submittal through TRC on January the 13th. And we have also gone to Rick Flug and talked to him at length, and we are submitting a waiver for one single access. We have done some other mitigations. What we're looking at doing is a 24-foot wide drive, then an additional 10-foot bypass lane for emergency purposes.
Okay.
We are working through Rick on that approval.
Okay, thanks. mentioned design guidelines. Are those formal design guidelines adopted by the city, or is that internal to Middleburg?
Yeah, those are design guidelines we have developed for the hamlet strategy. So it's how to get those to work in unison with the Charleston zoning requirements in the ordinance. It's nothing official through the actual municipality.
Got it. And then the last question I had was, I did not see in the submittal package any site context pictures or photos of adjacent neighborhoods, or I believe there's an existing structure on kind of the lot that's the small rectangular shaped lot along, yep, there. Did you study any of that or have pictures of those and how it relates to your plans?
Yeah, actually to the left, and I apologize, there isn't any specific photography included in this middle. To the, I would say the west is the Hayes Park. It's a future mixed-use development comprised of residential and commercial. Studying the relation to that, we do have connectivity provided via vehicular and pedestrian access. Right where you see that L is, yep, right there. And most of the residential uses are kind of focused in that area or the back of the development, where commercials push more to the front. So we do think the relationship and how we're connecting is going to complement that and not create any adverse effects. As far as the small rectangular piece, that structure is actually fairly well buffered and screened, not only by existing but proposed elevation, and has I believe over 100-foot separation from the first proposed structure, which would be one of the 3-bedroom units to the direct west of that. But we can include some visual representations of that on the next submittal.
Okay, thanks. That's all of my questions. If any of the other board members.
This is Erin. I have a quick question while you're in the landscape plans. That's good. David, can you flip to, I think it's L103 maybe? It's one of the up close ones. No, I think it was there like a,
Oh, here we go.
okay. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just making sure I'm reading this correctly. Trying to figure out because it looks like there's proposed trees, like, are those paved parking spaces, or the trees is it like a drafting area, or they look like they're like right on top of the curb? Yeah, are those parking spaces in a grass strip, and the trees will be shifted back?
Yeah, those should be set back.
Okay. I was just making sure that wasn't like some material that the trees are going to be planted in. That's just okay. And then below, it looks like there's some in the sidewalk too on the other side of the road. So I think.
Yeah, we'll absolutely clean that up.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure I was reading that correctly. I wasn't missing something. Thanks.
Sorry, I did have one more question. Is the intent for all of the streets to be city streets or to be private?
They'll all be private. This will be a single entity. It'll be one parcel, and the streets will be private. However, the city through TRC has requested that we place access easements across the cross connection to Hayes Park, as well as to the rear, to the north side. What we plan on doing is if you look at that northeast corner, that could be potential future extension into the adjacent development. So as part of the TRC, we will be placing easements on these. And when we go through and do the property line abandonment plat, we will actually do a property line abandonment as well as the new easements.
Okay, thanks. Any additional questions?
So the potential sorry, this is Erin again, the potential connections you were just talking about, just to make sure I'm understanding where those are there. And then is there one at the other bottom corner there too?
Is it this one?
Yes, correct. And that would be the future connection point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We also have one, if you look just to the south of the dog park, they currently is what we were designing as a paver system that will be for emergency turnaround. That could also be an extension point. So we have two, basically one, if you're looking at this plan, I'd call it Plan North and Plan South. We'll have future extension points. Now, there's quite a few grand trees along that edge, but that's where we could manipulate through those grand trees.
Okay.
I had one question. Is there anywhere in the drawings, my computer was giving me trouble going through this large PDF too, but who knows? Anywhere in the drawings that shows that Maybank view or more detail to what's actually happening along Maybank Highway? I know there's a buffer. Is there a wall? Is there a
just
render
referring
somewhere?
to the streetscape elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we had looked at that was sheet L 6.04, which kind of, it gives the reference of being along Maybank and then also behind the vegetation of what that's going to look and feel like.
The zoomed out one, it was kind of a zoomed out long.
Yeah, it was almost a plan profile type deal.
They get past it.
Yes, it would have been before the architectural set, sheet L 6.04. There it is. I think it's that one right there.
Oh.
And do you guys have to have isn't it like a 10-foot path in a privacy wall or something, or a low wall at Maybank for the Maybank overlay district? Do y'all have to comply with that too?
There won't be a wall, Ben, but there will be a 8-foot multi-use path that will align with Hayes Park and continue through our development. So we do have plans on a multi-use path. I do not know of any requirement for a wall.
You might want to read that overlay district a little better, John. They were requiring us to do it. We're right next to you in that little triangular parcel.
All right, that's what I taught Eric and the TRC staff, and they had not. I think they were concerned about screening this view of, if you go through there, these are all, I mean, extremely large live oaks. But I'll make note of that and talk with them and see if we need to have that.
Maybe not, or you get an exemption or something. Anyway, exception.
I don't know of a wall that's required here, but are you going to be showing this multi-use path? But you're not showing it here, right?
It's not on that plan. We're showing it on sheet C301, but we are in the process of revising it from the way it looks on this plan to, once we went to the 8-foot path, we'll probably end up having to, I guess, maneuver through the grand trees where we aren't affecting some of the protected areas.
Okay.
This is Dinos, and thank you. I guess since we're on the site plan, this is a good one. Can you zoom into the to where the clubhouse is for a moment? Right, that's fine. Just curious. You have, I think, embraced a very wonderful essence of what constitutes Johns Island architecturally, and really created a very interesting clubhouse. I guess, what is dictating its orientation right now?
So really, do you want me to go?
Yeah, you can jump on in.
Yeah. So a few different things. We wanted a few different things that were kind of laying out the clubhouse the way it is. We wanted people, as they came in the front of the clubhouse, to get a really nice shot of some of the amenities in general. So when you come in the front, which is kind of to the plan left of the clubhouse, you would look straight through to the right, out to the pool and all the amenities. So that we wanted that to be a clear shot. And that meant that kind of the other spaces in the clubhouse had to be kind of to the left or right of it, including the fitness center, which is the larger block to the bottom. It also allowed us to expand the fitness center if we needed to, because it's kind of off on its own and it's its own element. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question about the shape of it in general, but that was the idea.
And the shape was, I think it was more along the lines of the orientation. It's such a strong architectural feature that you don't get a view of the clubhouse until you're right on top of it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, may I ask you, there's a little structure to the bottom and I'm assuming, is that the
A mail kiosk, I believe.
mail kiosk? Okay, that's what I was
Yes.
thinking. The other issue that I was wondering about, and I think you have, can you go look at the on this plan here, the parking for the units that are along the walkway, I'm assuming are on this. Can you talk about the access to these units that are not directly onto the parking for a moment?
You're talking about these?
No, go up to, yes, right, those right there.
Oh, yeah.
The ones below it, those right there. So
Okay,
basically,
yeah. Yeah, so those are the units, and that's where the pod concept and the pocket neighborhood I'd refer to kind of creates a unique scenario where you're not immediately adjacent necessarily to the parking that is to serve the unit. But if you go up, you do have the head-end parking directly to the northeast of those three units. And what we do is we study that specifically to make sure there is all the parking, at least I believe we're at 1.67 as a ratio. So at least 1.5 units, or excuse me, spaces are within 150 feet in terms of walking. And that's how we study the parking as it relates to some of those units that are a bit more on an island or isolated.
okay. Within that same area right there, I'm just curious, any 3-story structures?
Not in that particular area, but if you go to the south side of that nice little existing pocket park where you see the kind of the sidewalk meandering through, those will be three stories.
And I'm sorry, where are those at? David, could you point to those?
Oh, I was trying to figure that out as well.
Yeah, so if you go directly south of the pool and to the east of the mail kiosk, those are 3-story units.
Okay. And that's what I wanted to ask you about. Can we go back to the 3-story unit plans, and can you just kind of walk me through this for a moment and tell me, how do these work? And
Sure. I believe it is page, what page is that? The 3-story units.
Were you going in the renderings?
The plans, I think, might be.
the plans, I think, is
helpful.
where I'd love to start.
So A106. So these are nice. So guys, on the left here, on the left plan is the ground floor plan. So you'd enter on the north side of this plan in the center, come into a foyer. There's a den to one side, and the other side is the stairs to go up to the main level. Right through the foyer is the garage, the 2-car garage, which is accessed through the back of the house. Once you go upstairs, that's the plan on the right. So the second floor. The main living area, kitchen, and a half bathroom are on this floor, as well as laundry and some storage and mechanical. And if you go to the next page, A107, the left plan is the top floor, where all the bedrooms and bathrooms are, full bathrooms.
Okay. And you're elevating this primarily to get the use of the garage space, or is it flood related? Well, it can't be flood related because you have occupied space on the first floor.
It's the garage space was the main thing we were thinking of. How do we get a 3-bedroom unit that has a nice tight footprint, but also has a 2-car garage, because we think that's going to be something that is appealing to folks who would want to live here.
Okay.
So having that tuck under garage allows us to just kind of push up all the living space, so it all ends up off the ground.
David, could you go to the perspective for a moment of the 3-story?
Sure.
There we go. So the gray area that is shown on the right-hand side, is that horizontal lap siding?
So with the C1 unit specifically, you mean, or?
Yes, the C1 unit.
Sure. So the blue-gray color is all horizontal lap siding.
Okay.
The black is just a roof, the roof over the front porch, which is covering that entire front of the building.
Mhm.
And then the board and batten siding is just a way to break up some of the height of this unit on top. And also by breaking up the materials, we can break up color because of the material change.
Mhm. Hmm. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I just have a quick question for the team. In regards to your layout and design, I know Madam Chair had asked you about TRC and others. By any chance, have you guys had any interaction or conversation with any of the community groups there on Johns Island? Or David, have you received any letters from any community members on Johns Island, like the Johns Island Task Force or Johns Island Community Association, with regards to the design or layout or landscape?
I have not. I'm surprised. This is a big project. We didn't get any public letters or notification at all.
Okay, and I know this is not a DRB issue, and I know it's probably going through the other appropriate planning staff, but is there any requirement of concerns with traffic impact on Maybank with having just a single ingress, egress out of the site?
Stephanie, TRC will cover that. We really can't cover it in our meeting review, but TRC is the board that covers that in the city.
Right, yeah, I'm aware of that. I was just curious if they've looked at that or commented.
Yeah, I have not heard on that yet either. I did speak to Eric Schultz today about the variances and so forth, that they were okay with moving forward with us, and he indicated they were. But yeah, I think at this next round, we can flush out a lot more with the neighbors and so forth.
Okay.
Hey, David, Stephanie brings up a great point. What was the DRB sign was posted on site? That's correct.
Yes, yeah, we have a staff person that does that for every meeting.
Okay, that's interesting that.
It's such a big site, it may be hard for people to see the sign in this situation.
Yeah.
Any other questions? With none and with no public comment, David, staff comments, please.
Thank you. So for some staff observations, the height, scale, mass of the buildings in this project is good and appropriate. The site plan has a very nice layout, and the applicants have made good efforts to preserve the wetlands and existing trees. They've shown access spurs for roads to have future connections to the future developments. Staff comment one, there are several dead ends in this site layout. We're wondering if any of them can be eliminated, or if a cul-de-sac could be added to some of these dead ends with adding some landscape where possible as well. Horizontal material transitions should occur at internal corners only. Review the buildings for needed revisions where different materials currently meet at internal corners. For example, this occurs at the townhome F on sheet 211. Additionally, the material change while remaining in the same plane on townhome F4, which is on sheet A211, and townhome B4 on sheet A215. Number three, the project would benefit from the use of raised slab or stem wall on the residential buildings. Please consider this. And number four, where shed dormers are not inappropriate for this architecture, they should not be used for large faux louvers as they come across as decorative applique. Number five, add windows to the end walls where none exist, such as the townhome E, B, and A. Number 6, use materials in a consistent manner. For example, the roof of the primary body of the clubhouse should be metal consistently instead of intersections, gables of 2 different materials. Number 7, apply shutters in a consistent manner. They're used only in 2 windows of the building detaching units. And shutters also should not be used as to create a faux window on a building when no other shutters are applied to the building. The staff does recommend conceptual approval with the conditions noted.
Thanks, David. Does the applicant team have any items they'd like to clarify or respond to in staff comments?
Eric, yes, as far as the traffic, I know some concerns were brought up as far as the traffic. Would you like me to, I could enlighten y'all on that if you'd like.
I mean, unless anyone feels compelling to hear it, I'd rather keep it out of our board since it's really not in our purview. It's a slippery slope. Anyone disagree?
I agree completely.
Okay.
Sandy.
Sorry, John. I know we would probably like to hear it, but I just want to keep that line kind of drawn since it really isn't in our purview, and it's. But I appreciate it.
Completely understand.
Anything else to clarify or respond?
Yeah, if I could just ask for clarification on a couple of the items about the units and some of the other vertical architecture. One question was about windows on the end walls of specifically the townhouse units. I know that in a lot of those, most of our locations, the units are fairly close together, and we didn't put windows in, especially if they're in a bathroom or a closet or something. But would it make sense to where on a townhouse where the townhouse ends up kind of on the end of a run of units, put windows there and not kind of all over, especially because they would just be looking at, a bathroom looking at a bathroom or something?
I'll leave that up to the board. It's just something to study and consider.
Right.
Okay, thanks. We are now moving into board discussion or a motion.
This is Andy. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ben.
So I feel like we need to see more context and renderings that are actually what's going to happen, in the proposal in the design on the site plan to really make any determination. To be honest, I feel like these are kind of townhouses anywhere. They're not cited. They're not adjacent shown. Honestly, I thought it was kind of a requirement, or maybe it's not, but I feel like, especially from Maybank, we need to see what it's going to look like from the street, what these buildings near that public way are going to look like, with the path, with whatever requirements we have, with the colors that are going to be used next to each townhouse, whatever's proposed, rather than just looking at the elevations or one townhouse rendered by itself out of context. Just personally. Go ahead.
We did a lot of that with Hayes Park, the parts that we reviewed, which was the commercial, is asking for context and streetscapes, and I think you're right, and I think there's a lot of internal siting issues, with this concept that may come out with those renderings.
David, are you able to speak to that as it relates back to the requirements for conceptual?
It's, I don't want to ask too much, but 3D renderings are really not required at conceptual. We've pushed a little
Well,
in the past and asked for it because I think with these big complicated projects, it really does help. I think it's in our right to ask for it. But, even though
well,
it may not be-
David, I understand that there is a checklist, but you know, the applicant is trying to convey an idea and trying to convey how the project meets, you know, what the board is looking for. And we're asking for tools that help the board make these
I agree.
determinations.
I think we can ask for it.
Yeah, I think it's within our right on projects of being this large.
Right.
I think.
I think we at least need to see what's going to be visible from Maybank at a minimum.
They
my
did
opinion.
show that with the streetscape.
Well, I think it kind of goes beyond, you know, while these are private roads, they, you know, have interconnection to the adjacent pieces. And it does become more of a public realm interior to the project. And, you know, this isn't something we haven't asked of multifamily projects in the past,
Right.
which this is, you know, my company does these very same sorts of communities, and it is a multifamily deal. It's just presented in a different context. And, you know, I think, you know, in that vein, I think there's some very successful parts of it, with pod 1 and pod 4 and pod 9 being good examples. And then I think there are some very unsuccessful variations of this, and all of the, you know, pod 6. It's all these pod numbers. I can't find all of them. It's a very pod 6 and 7, pod 11 and 12 seem very crushed. And then I think I'm going with Dinos, and I think where Dinos was going with the Clubhouse is I feel like that its siting is a very missed opportunity. It's a very nice clubhouse. And it seems like you're going to go buy it before you realize what it is. You know, all of that said, I think the architecture is very contextual. I think that the houses themselves with some evolution are very contextual. I do not think the landscape palette overall is very contextual. I think it needs some study. So I'm just not really quite sure that a project of this scale is quite there.
David, sorry, I thought you were finished.
No, I was just going to say one last kind of comment. This is more of a drawing comment. The site plan kind of flops around a lot, or the site package, the plan flops around sometimes. Maybank is package left, sometimes it's to the bottom, and then there's a lot of sheets that we can probably do without that would help us focus on what's important in the set. And I think that the applicant can kind of comb through the set and take out some things that we don't need to see. Sorry, Aaron, I didn't mean to ramble.
No worries. I was just going to ask David, and sorry to make you keep flipping around, but I had everything pulled up on my laptop, but it just died. So I'm going to have to ask you too. That view that we keep talking about from Maybank, is there any way you could zoom in on that a little bit? It's just so hard to see on my tablet. I know we've looked at it a few times, but it would be helpful for you could zoom in for a minute. Just so I could see it a little better. Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Erin, may I make a couple of comments very quickly?
Of course, I'm finished. Sorry, I
Okay,
didn't.
I'm sorry.
I didn't
That's
have a
all right.
specific
No.
question. I just wanted to have a chance
No,
to look at
you,
it.
you always lead us to great points. I didn't want to interrupt your thought process. This is Dinos. I believe architecturally that the approach is quite appropriate. It's contextual. I do believe it's contextual. It's simple, particularly, and I think that the manner that the horizontal and vertical board and batten are beginning to represent themselves are interesting. I do believe that there's, I'm not so sure that you need all of the different color palettes, but that's just a personal opinion and very subjective. I believe that a lot of it is particularly on the Johns Island area, is a very neutral, earthy type of approach. I really do believe, as Andy was saying, that one of the strongest elements that you have is really the clubhouse. Can you go to that perspective for a moment, David? And we've got you jumping all over the place, and I know it's not easy doing this, but it's really one of the marquee pieces of architecture, and I think proportionately, it's just really very clean, and really what I would hope would be a continued inspiration as far as the ongoing evolution and development of the other units and elements, just purely looking at placements, proportions, is just very well done. And I fear that I understand the orientation, and Andy and Aaron, well, everybody may disagree, but gosh, I feel this should be the face of the project and should be prominent as you come into the property, because it does give you a cue and a clue into what you're going to be seeing beyond this. So I would probably argue that maybe the orientation of the building as it relates to the entry needs to be really restudied. The three-story section, whereas everything is so nicely proportioned, I lose it with the three-story building architecturally, and I don't know if hearing the applicant's position, I felt like there may have been, and this may be completely wrong, but there may have been some struggles with the translation of this three-story portion vertically. I do think, though, from a materiality standpoint of all the buildings, the idea of the shingled roof is quite appropriate. Certainly, the simplicity and even more exercise in simplicity with regards to the application of the horizontal siding and the vertical board and batten really need to be studied. And I do agree with staff comments too, that I think I wrote down that I agree with all 7 of staff's comments, and particularly one other issue that I would throw in there is that one of the things that we always fight with is ensuring that we get as much depth on the fenestration as we possibly can. And sometimes we wait until the preliminary approval review, but I would tell you at Conceptual that one of the key aspects that we're going to be constantly looking at is how the fenestration is recessed within the wall to give a sense of depth so that the vertical walls are not so flat themselves. The other thing too is David was indicating, I think Ben hit it too. It's really hard to get a sense of the groupings of the buildings because there's just an abundance of information here that it's somewhat of an overload of sorts. but it would be nice to see more of a 3D presentation and representation of how all of these complexes go together. I know that when there was a project that we looked at, Erica and Andy, you go ahead, and Aaron, it was on John's Island as well. And, do you guys remember the just very simple structures, very similar to this, but what we were seeing was the relationship between how all of those structures began to vertically respond to each other. I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of the project now.
I think it's the Hayes Park deal.
It
next
is the
door.
Hayes Park. You're absolutely wrong. It was in front of me. That was extremely helpful as we move forward to get a great sense, because I think that what I have heard thus far is that we want to be very careful going forward so that we don't throw you backwards when we get to a preliminary study. And that's not foreshadowing on anything. It's just a concern that I know that I share with all the other board members, that we don't want the applicant to get into preliminary design and then come back on, start talking about concept design related issues. So that's my 2 cents. Actually, that was a nickel's worth.
I have a question about the clubhouse, since that's been something that at least 2 of us have brought up. It looked like to me on the site plan that might be dictated by some grand trees surrounding it. Is that an accurate interpretation?
Yeah, I can jump here. It's Steve. So the orientation one, to Eric's point, just visually when you come in the front door, it has not only the amenities to the back, but the large pocket of the existing trees, which really creates that view for the residents themselves. And there obviously are a lot of spatial constraints just with the proximity of the grand trees basically covering the entire front portion of the site. So it was a combo decision based on the visual representation as you enter, but also the adjacent grand trees that just make other orientations difficult, not to say impossible, but just very challenging from an actual engineering design of the site plan.
Thank you, and apologies for the out of order question, Madam Chair. And that kind of speaks to an overall comment that I have, which is that I appreciate how they have made good use of the areas that are not wet or covered with grand trees on the site. And, in terms of embracing the conservation development that was recently adopted, and overall preservation, and some of the smart water control that was mentioned by the applicant. So in that regard, I definitely like what I'm seeing so far. I think Dino's called out maybe where the 3-story townhomes might have been off on their own, and maybe there's a way that could be shown. If the 3 stories, maybe if those could be incorporated in areas where they're mixed in with the other lower properties, so that they're not off on their own on an island and just the 3 stories sticking up. Maybe just relocating that density to another part of the site where it would blend in a little bit better. Those are all my thoughts.
Is there a motion on the table?
I would make the motion, Madam Chair, but I don't know what all of the different comments, I don't know if they're just suggestions or if they were recommendations, or I would like to make a motion to accept staff's comments. I think Dino, you have to help me, and Ben and Aaron. Unless, Madam Chair, you were able to get down all the recommendations.
I did not.
Oh.
No,
Hoping that
I mean,
someone
I-
can.
I will just, I think that one of the concerns, it sounds like the, and I'm thinking through this right now, Stephanie, for just a moment, and I know that, you know, ArcaSpeak is just all over the place. Am I wrong? It sounds like from a standpoint of the overall reaction to the board, there's an embrace of what it's done thus far, but I don't know if there's a comfort level to, I think, a comfort level to grant conceptual approval based upon some, just wanting some additional information to provide that comfort level. Am I misinterpreting that?
That's how I envisioned it, Dinos.
I do too. I think there's some evolution in the plan that still needs to occur. I'm personally not in favor of moving forward right now.
Obviously, I tend to be a bit more forward moving as it relates to the types of concerns. So, you know, my preference tends to be to provide specifics of what we would like to see at the next stage so that we avoid the, you know, potential to have to be working backwards.
Yes.
But obviously it sounds like the room might not be comfortable with that approach.
And you nailed it right on the head, Ashley. I think that it's making sure that we're not working backwards. I mean, I can just see, and I appreciate the challenge that that the applicant has truly gone through here. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of what I think could be a very novel and interesting neighborhood. And certainly feel that the degree and the direction from an architectural standpoint is certainly an appropriate approach. I think that there are specific issues that could have an impact on this ongoing evolution. For instance, it's just, I mean, I'm still, can you go to the, look at the, can you blow into this map for a moment, David? And Stephanie, I completely interrupted you when you were trying to go through it, and I apologize. I guess the last point that I'll make is this: understanding that, and having been engaged in a variety of issues where, of course, the significant and monumental trees dictate location of certain things, it's still a very sensitive issue which relates to the aspect of placement and identity, and I just keep looking at the terminus of this first public road A and where it ends up at, and just wondering if there's any way that the clubhouse, for instance, can become more of a marquee setting as far as the identity of this development is concerned, because truthfully, as you come in, it's such an important building. It's one of the larger buildings on site, and you're really looking at the exercise room as opposed to the essence of what the building represents itself. And I'm wondering if there's any way that there could be a terminus that the building is located at the end of Public Road A, for instance, or even if it's moved closer to the entry point, just a restudy of all of that. And by asking that, I fear that we're having a rather significant impact on other aspects that could change the overall site plan. So I guess that's why I'm a little uncomfortable at this point in time too, saying conceptual approval is approved, but this is what I want to, anyway. Stephanie, do you want to take a stab at this, or?
No, why don't you take a stab at it?
I would,
yeah.
if I may say, and kind of also hinting at what Ashley was just saying. I mean, I'm compliment the applicant on the evolution thus far, and my recommendation would be a deferral at this point, not that possibly they're in a negative way, but in a very positive way, that the project is evolving, but it's big and it's massive. And for those of us who are responsible for the design direction, we really believe that we need additional information to have a great sense of comfort here. And I guess the first thing that I might again go back to, and I'm trying to remember some of the aspects, and I'm going to need everybody's help here, but I would like to, first of all, agree with staff comments 1 through 7. Madam Chair, did I make it clear I'm recommending a deferral?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And staff comments 1 through 7. And board comments, number 1, restudy the location and approach to the clubhouse. As it relates to the entry to the development. My second would be a reiteration of what we just spoke about as on the elevations of the buildings, study the recess of the fenestration.
Sorry, hold on one second.
Okay.
And we're talking about the townhome buildings?
Yes, actually all the structures.
Okay. All right, sorry. On elevations of all structures, study the fenestration.
Right, for as deep of a recess as we can possibly achieve. Guys, what else from the landscape side? I'm sorry, I was trying to write notes, but unfortunately.
I would say, and maybe this can be cleaned up a little bit, but explore how the landscape can be utilized or better integrated into the overall concept, so that the concept architecturally and site planning wise and landscape are all more harmonious, if that makes sense. I know
Say that
that's
again one more time, Erin. Sorry.
It's kind of vague. That's why and I just said it like 3 different ways. But I think a concise way of saying this, and Andy, jump in if you have a clear way. I think you probably know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But explore how the landscape can be better integrated into the overall concept or used to develop the concept further, or kind of I'm missing.
Provide a unified concept of landscape architecture and site design.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And I think that goes back to what I was saying about a contextual landscape, a contextual landscape palette. I think that's missing.
One other board comment would be, and Ben helped me here, is to provide additional 3D renderings of the neighborhood components of the pods so that we have a better sense of how the structures interrelate with each other.
Yep, sounds good.
Dinos, do you mind if I
Hold on one second, Andy, sorry. Provide additional 3D renderings of what areas did we say?
Of the pods.
Okay, of the pods.
I'd like to see
So
this.
the board has a better sense how the structures will relate to one another. Okay. What's that then?
Dinos, can we ask for something at the Maybank entrance?
Yes, by all means. A perspective from Maybank Road.
Right.
At the entry point.
Correct.
Yeah. And for clarity as to what the entry actually looks like too.
Yeah.
Stephanie, Ashley, have we left anything out for?
Dino, so may I add a couple things?
Please.
I would just say that from a drawing package, to refine the drawing package so that the plan orientations are consistent, and to refine the package so that only the information the board needs is provided in things like utility plans and utility details. We don't necessarily need to, we'd like to see generally where they go and how they affect things, but we don't need all of the details and erosion control details. Those are just things outside our purview, as an example. And then from just an overall design standpoint, I'd like that the applicant, like to request the applicant study some of these more congested pods. Like I said, pod 7, pod 6, pod 12, and pod 11 would be examples of what I'm talking about.
Say that again, Andy, sorry. I didn't.
I was just saying that the applicants study some of these more congested neighborhood pods, with pods 6 and 7, 11 and 12 being examples.
Okay, anything else?
That's all from me.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just a question or observation here. And looking at the design, if there's any way, because I can't tell, I'm looking at the site plan here, the area along the utility right of way. So you have, for instance, 4 units that back right up to that. I don't know if they're providing any type of buffer or landscape for those 4 units, or if there's parking somewhere there. I just can't tell from, and it might be areas. So I guess as they're fleshing out the design, as everyone has said, if they can, for me, if they can also address, because I know Hayes Park is adjacent to it, but I don't know what people are looking at, or those units, what's behind there. I don't know if they're providing any type of landscape or what.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion for deferral with staff comments 1 through 7. Board comments: 1, restudy location and approach to the clubhouse as it relates to the entry of the development. 2, on elevations of all structures, study the fenestrations to provide as deep of a recess as possible. 3, provide a united concept of landscape architecture and site design. 4, provide a contextual landscape concept. 5, provide additional 3D renderings of the pods and main entry at Maybank so the board has a better sense of how the structures relate to one another. 6, refine the drawing package so drawing orientation is mostly consistent, and edit out plans not needed for this submittal. And 7, applicant to study more congested pods such as pods 6, 7, 11, and 12. Does that cover it? And I think, Stephanie, your comment would be covered under the landscape architecture comments, if that's okay.
Fine.
Is there a second?
This is Andy. I second the motion.
Thanks, Andy. I will now call roll. Erin?
Yes, in favor.
Erica, real quick, if I can just add one more comment.
Oh, sorry. Yes, and I forgot to ask for any further discussion. Go ahead, Ashley.
That's okay. We've talked about it ad nauseum, but I just wanted to add, after the motion was formed, I really do believe specific is terrific. So I appreciate all the comments here. And even though we're going to be possibly deferring this motion, I think that we've given the applicant something, very finite. They understand our expectations.
Thank you. Any other further discussion? And sorry to skip that one on this one, Ashley.
All right, and other discussion, I forgot, in terms of this landscape, or in terms of this design, and this project, are there, because I can't tell if there were any type of screening requirements for, I guess, large trash areas as part of this plan? Because for the multi-use, I don't know if they're planning on using curbside or if there's dumpsters. I can't really tell on the plans. Do you know, David, or any?
I am not recalling, but that's something that we could get to more so on the preliminary level.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other further discussion? Okay, I will now call roll. Aaron?
Yes, in favor.
Stephanie?
Yes, in favor.
Ashley?
Yes.
Ben?
Yes, in favor.
And I am also yes in favor. Thank you very much. We will now move on to agenda item number 5, which is approval of the minutes from the November 15th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam
Motion
Chair,
to approve.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, are we going back to the first item before we adjourn, or are you going to do the minutes?
I was going to do the minutes and then check with David to see what we needed to do. Andy, was that a motion to approve?
It was.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
So moved.
Thank you, Dinos. Any further discussion? If none, I'll call roll. Aaron?
Yes, in favor.
Stephanie?
Yes, in favor.
Ashley?
I was not present at the last meeting, so do I abstain here?
You can, either way is fine. You can abstain if you're more comfortable with that.
I'll abstain.
Okay, Ben?
Yes, in favor.
And I am also yes in favor. With that, David, it appears that no one for item 1 has come on. It's been so long since.
I don't recall this situation in the past. I was just.
I do feel like we need to still hear it and maybe we defer it to take an action on it because they didn't withdraw the application.
Aaron, can we read it and then make a motion to defer? Just kind of read the.
That's what my thought is. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Unless anyone feels strongly that we could
table
I think that we need to at least give them the opportunity to speak about it, and if we defer it, that basically keeps them in their queue.
Right, and I think that keeps us from not basically making a decision on our own to not hear it. Okay, so we'll next go back to item number 1, which is 1757 Savannah Highway, requesting approval for a mural on a building that includes a sign. David, I guess my question is, do we need to go through the slides? I mean, is there, before we get into the presentation or anything formality, is there the chance that the board's comfortable approving it? Or should we just defer it from the gate since there's no one here to answer questions?
I would
defer from the gate.
Yeah.
What was that, Dinos?
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted Stephanie.
Oh, no, you're fine. I
You
just
said
said I would
defer.
prefer deferring it since the applicant is not present.
And I might even take that a little bit further. Because the applicant is not present, I would remove it from the agenda and ask the applicant to resubmit.
Do we have the power to do that, David?
I was thinking that was going to have to be the process myself. I thought it just wouldn't be heard tonight and they'll have to resubmit and pay a fee again.
If they defer, they have to resubmit anyway. If we defer them, they have to resubmit anyways, like anybody else would defer.
I guess from a policy standpoint, I mean, technically, couldn't we go through the slides, give comments, read the public letter and vote one way or another? Because that's my question. Or do we have, if we defer it just because they're not here, I guess is that the right thing to do? Or, I mean, does that make sense? My question?
Yeah. What about, So they don't have to go through a resubmittal process. Why is it that we can't table this until the next meeting? And then you get with them, David?
That sounds reasonable, that.
Okay.
David, let me ask you this. Is applicant presence a requirement for moving forward in the process?
I believe it is.
No, typically it's not, but
I don't think it is.
Okay.
But
I mean, I think technically speaking, we could hear it, go through it with no one in attendance.
Then maybe that's what we do and
Okay.
decide what type of motion we'd like.
Okay. I have a strong opinion.
I do too.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear.
I have an
everybody's
opinion, but I always feel like that somebody should have the opportunity to at least defend themselves or defend their.
Agreed. So I think maybe we table, is there a way to table it so they don't have to resubmit, David, and make more paperwork on the city's end?
Well, when you say they don't have to resubmit, you mean just
file another application, pay another fee?
It just becomes old business at the next meeting.
Yeah, essentially just goes to number one at the next meeting.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I think that's the way we should do it.
So I could move to table this application due to the absence of the applicant at this meeting. But may I also include, is it appropriate to include a great concern on the submittal in the manner that it's in compliance with doo-wop, city zoning, and a variety of other associated ordinances that dictate signage and graphics? Or would you rather me just stop tabling it, just to stop at tabling?
I think that we should just table it,
Okay,
that we're taking no action.
Okay, and that would be fine. I'm fine with that, because I just don't want the.
So let me ask you this.
Sorry, David, interrupt. There is a Josh Dix still on the call that I don't see listed anywhere else. He's not
related to the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
I was recommending deferral mainly because of technical reasons that the applicant didn't provide any dimensions. Typically, I would like to see dimensions of the facades themselves, as well as the lettering for the signage. I can't approve the signage with no dimension. So I already let the applicant know this, and I think she was just planning on getting me that for the next submittal anyway.
Okay. Could you also send her the public comment letter that we received too?
The only concern that I have is potentially misrepresenting the intent of where the board might be going. I think
I'm concerned with that as well.
Yeah, I think that is a shortfall in the application, that she did not provide the dimensions that need to be provided. But there's a lot to this that that really needs to be discussed, and I just.
Is there a motion to table it so that the applicant and or the artist can be present?
Erica,
Yes,
I motion to table, please.
Thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Stephanie?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Actually, I think Dino is what you might have been getting at, is that we probably would have deferred or even denied if we had discussed. And are we providing this applicant a benefit of the doubt that we are not providing other applicants who are present, and in turn sending a message that we don't intend to send by simply tabling the item as opposed to deferring with comments from staff?
And just so you guys know, for when you table something, there's a first and a second, there's no discussion. You go to a vote.
Okay.
Okay.
And did just to, well, there's already been, so I can't ask a question.
It's typically, it's not debatable.
I wasn't, I was just wondering, is it a requirement, David, that the applicant be present for
I think we determined that they do not. I don't have the answer to that. I should know the ordinance better.
This is a pretty rare occurrence.
I know if you go follow the other, boards and commissions, applicants do not have to be present. It's always great if they are, because they can ask, questions, but they typically do not have to be present.
I would agree. Yeah, Stephanie. I don't know. I'm not sure if this board has a specific policy, but I agree with that. Usually if the applicant doesn't show up, they, for some reason, let the staff member know and they defer. Okay, let's just take a vote on tabling it. We had, who made the motion? Andy had the motion. Stephanie had the second. Dinos?
I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to vote nay.
Okay, Aaron?
Yes, for tabling.
Dinos, did you say yay?
He said nay. No.
Oh.
Ashley?
No.
Ben?
I'm voting nay as well, because I would have denied the application.
And these are
I
not.
would say if I vote no, the motion fails, then we have to take another motion, correct? David,
Yes.
okay. I'm going to vote no also, because I feel like we had a little bit more of a discussion going. Maybe we hear it, give comments to help make the next submission. Hopefully more in line with what we would like to see. And I'm voting no. So we're back to the table on a new motion.
And may I make a motion? And I
Before we make the motion, David, do I need to read the public letter for the record?
Would you mind?
Okay. No, not at all. I'd be happy to. I just want to make sure it's included. We have an email from Charlie Smith expressing to us that this item is inappropriate for Savannah Highway and Wildflower Road intersection. Plan West Ashley states opportunities to reuse vacant or aging commercial sites should be sought to improve community design and character and better serve residents' needs. If this current proposal is approved, the DRB will not be improving community design or character. It will be imposing this directly across of Savannah Highway from this, showing different imagery from the presentation and then also of the title loans store. The city's doo-wop overlay design standards for building appearance dictate that new buildings should utilize colors that are complementary, not homogeneous to existing buildings. Where drastic exterior changes are proposed, should existing buildings not be held to the same standard? The city, county, and state are in the process of making major upgrades to this intersection. The design standards for the area should also result in an upgraded appearance. I would also ask if the signage allowed for this business has been calculated for compliance with current ordinances in preparation for this DRB proposal. It seems questionable to me that one business would be allowed 3 separate building faces with this scale of proposed sign text. To additionally propose a color scheme incompatible with design standards of both Plan West Ashley and the DuPont Wapu overlay district should not be allowed. I ask you to vote no on this request. Again, Charlie Smith, 333 Wapu Road in West Ashley. I don't think we need to formally have David read his staff comments. We all have them for the record since there's no one else present regarding this item. So trying to follow some semblance of our normal protocol since we are going to make a formal motion on it. There's no one to answer board questions. We went through public comment. We have David's staff recommendations. And now we're in board discussion and a motion. Unless anyone needs David to read his comments, he can, I'm sure.
It's just not appropriate for that location. I think, I live right behind there too. And for people to say they love the title loans building, I think it's a little much, but that area, like Charlie said, is going to get redone. And I seriously doubt this is how the city wants that area to be redone. I don't think it's appropriate contextually. I don't think it fits into that site at all. So I would recommend a denial.
Yeah, to me, it has more of the character of the Avondale murals, not this area of West Ashley.
Agreed. I think that if it were in Avondale, it'd be a different discussion.
Yeah, it's a context issue.
So if that's a motion, I'll second your motion.
Sure, I'll make that as a motion.
Motion to deny, Ben?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Andy has the second. So we have a motion to deny by Ben. Andy has the second. Any further discussion?
Do you want to potentially include any of the comments from staff?
I think the comment is it's non-contextual. And so that's the basis for the denial.
Ben, what do you?
That was staff's. Was that staff's recommendation? I thought staff recommend.
I agree with you, Andy. You can include that as a comment. It's not contextual to the site.
Wait, I thought Ashley asked about staff recommendation.
Staff recommendation is deferral.
I wouldn't add any staff recommendations. I would just say denial. It's not contextual. So that means they'd have to go back to the drawing board, right?
Right.
Right. You don't have to include any of the staff comments unless you find them relevant to your motion.
Right, exactly.
I guess I'm really confused about this whole process, but I don't think I'm alone in that. So since we already voted for tabling it,
that failed.
That failed.
But if I voted in favor of tabling it, it seems odd to vote to deny it now.
Well, we were tabling it to give the
I know that other people who voted against that motion. I get it. You weren't in favor of tabling it. You want to deny it. You have the right to do that, but it feels like, I don't know. And so I can just vote against the motion to deny, but it would, I don't know how that really works.
See what you mean,
I think you're,
Aaron. I mean, I think we swung a little bit too far, right? That's kind of what my thought was too. I mean, I'm fine with denying as well, but I also feel like particularly because the applicant's not here, but there are some things that clearly need to be in another submittal. And I think that there are some guidelines, particularly surrounding the sizing of the lettering and things like that, that would be constructive to include.
But see, that's our point, Ashley, is that if this was a deferral, then those would be appropriate. What we're saying is that it's not contextual, start over.
I appreciate that. And yet the applicant could come forward with another design, which is also lacking these same elements that we're requesting.
Well,
I think the main issue, and no matter what, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, is that no matter what the artist or the applicant came forward with, is that the mural of this nature is appropriate in Moore Avondale and not the Doo-Wop area. And I think that's the basis for denying it, not the text, not the signage, not anything else, other than contextually, we have an issue with this application of a mural in this part of West Ashley.
Yeah, and Erica, honestly, I went through the zoning ordinance on signage. I'm kind of agreeing with Charlie. I don't know if this even complies with zoning. So, and it certainly isn't in keeping. Let me be quiet there. Yeah, it's a contextual issue. Yeah.
I'm fine either way personally with the deferral, solely because the applicant's not here, with all of the comments that we just stated about it not being contextual. potential signage zoning issues, you know, if we want to give the applicant a chance to come back and defend the design. But to me, I don't see how we would approve something of this nature in this do-up.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the motion by Ben, which is denial based on the contextual location of this site not being applicable, or let me think of a better way to word it. That this design is not contextual within do-up. Andy has the second. I will now call roll. Dinos.
Yes, in favor.
Aaron.
No.
Stephanie.
No.
Ashley.
No.
Ben.
That's my motion.
Sorry, okay. I am yes in favor. So I think that covered 4 to carry the motion, which would have been Dinos, Andy, Ben, and myself. Yep, so 4-3, the motion carried.
This was probably by far the most complex application that we've seen in a long time.
Solely because the representative wasn't here.
No,
I certainly think,
that's exactly
David, that
right.
we need to add to our retreat agenda is to get clarification on that.
That they're gonna come.
Yeah, it's funny because I think we all kind of agree in concept. It's just implementation really that we were discussing. So
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, we want
Has the
yes.
meeting,
Right.
Madam Chair, has the meeting adjourned because we're still being recorded?
Yes.
Yes, can you stop the recording, David?
Yes.
And Stephanie, if I may apologize to you.
We do
for-
still have 2 attendees in the meeting, so I do want to make people aware of that.
Yes.
And we're still live on YouTube.
Yes.
And,
Or I should say our meeting